Assalamu alaikum and warm welcome to everybody for joining us. My name is Zaina Della Porta and I'm the in-home caseworker for our Montreal home. First, I want to thank you for joining Sakeenah Canada with Beyond the Baby Blues. So just some quick housekeeping before we get started into everything with the slides. This presentation will be recorded and it will be later uploaded onto Sakeenah Canada's YouTube channel. So we ask that you keep your mics muted and your cameras off throughout the discussion. At the end of the discussion, we are going to be pausing for some Q&A, and I'll instruct how to do that when we get there, inshallah. Last year, we began a conversation. It was about the perinatal period, exploring the physical, neurological, social, and relational changes. This year, we're going to be widening that lens. Today, we'll be looking at the multiple layers that shape a mother's experience, what's happening inside the body, around her in culture, and within the heart. Alongside scientific perspectives, we're also bringing elements of faith, recognizing that they're central to how many Muslim mothers move throughout this stage. It isn't a conversation about fixing mothers. It's a conversation about understanding what this stage asks of us and how support is meant to be part of this journey. So to start things off, I want to introduce to you my colleagues. And before I get there, let me just note that we're going to be referencing a lot from last year's Beyond the Baby Blues. So this is like an extension of that conversation. So you can always go back to that and find it on our Sakeenah Canada YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed, subscribe there too. So let's kick it off. I'm going to introduce you to my amazing colleagues. They both have their own unique perspectives, expertise, and experience to deepen this conversation. I'm going to start out with introducing Shamyle Khan, who is our mental health program manager at Sakeenah. She provides trauma-informed leadership in clinical programming, practitioner development, community and mental health initiatives, and she holds a master's in clinical psychology and has practiced across Pakistan, Dubai, and Canada, mashallah. She brings a cross-cultural lens to trauma care. Her work is grounded in holistic, evidence-informed psychotherapy with a focus on resolving trauma burdens and restoring inner stability and secure connection with others. Thank you. We'll be hearing from you shortly. And I also want to introduce Reem Omran. She's our mental health counselor at Sakeenah and a registered psychotherapist qualifying who works from a person-centered approach. Reem is deeply passionate about supporting individuals as they navigate life's challenges and reconnect with themselves. Reem creates a warm, supportive space where people feel heard, understood, and empowered to grow and create meaningful changes. So thank you for both my team for being here, and thank you for having me here. It's the first year that we incorporate a caseworker into the conversation, so thank you so much. Let's kick it off with discussing like what many women notice first, and that's the physical changes. Many mothers say they feel different at this stage, but they can't always explain why. From your experience and your perspective, what changes are happening in the body that can help us understand this a little bit better?
Yeah, so thank you so much for the introduction, Zaina, and welcome everybody to this conversation that we're extending into the second year, alhamdulillah. And by the way, please keep the chat active if you have any thoughts or reflections of your own to share, because of course we are establishing here that everybody experiences their changes differently, and that's true for all aspects of life and is so true and central to the perinatal period. So when it comes to noticing what changes first, I think a lot of information and awareness is also built around the physical, and now with the different mediums that we have to gather information, a lot more is coming to the surface about the neurological changes and the physiological changes and all of that. What comes first in terms of awareness, and where do you begin noticing, right? So naturally, of course, body goes through the changes that are most visible to self and others. So that becomes the prominent point of conversation. But oftentimes that is the only thing that stays in conversation, and that can lead to a lot of frustration, right? So we're trying to expand that lens and go a bit deeper. and highlight that it's not just the physical, which is very important when we're going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about that. It's also layered. So it's going to be social, yes, cultural, yes, and those are also aspects that are highlighted, but it's also um, deeply, deeply impactful to how we understand ourselves and give meaning to ourselves, so our identity and the meaning that we give to our life or have given to our life to this point. And and I'm not talking about the first pregnancy or the first perinatal period. I'm talking about every perinatal period that would come in your life
Mm-hmm.
um, in this context. So yeah, I'm just going to reference the last conversation that we had last year about this as well, and I'm going to build on that. So the brain and body adjust to the perinatal changes. What does that mean? That means that it's not stage one, two, three, four, and then you graduate. It is actually non-linear, meaning that your body, the mother's body, is going to go through changes that are actively responding to the needs of the growing child. We hear this in conversation with people who are going through this, that I sound like a crazy person because I'm smelling things that nobody can even pick up on, or expecting to give birth to. Yeah. So what we're saying is that the entire anatomical recalibration and the functional recalibration of the brain demands you to evolve the meaning and the perception of self, or the narrative of who you are as a person, for it to evolve. And that is a huge transformation that is at hand. And that would penetrate into the spiritual aspect, the faith meaning that you give to your life, or you give to the world around you in general, your relationships. So, it does reflect and ripple into other aspects of your life. But the challenge is that all of that is happening at once, right? And that is how it is remarkably different than any other transformation or transition period in anyone else's life, because typically a transition is one or two happening at once, but this is from the ground up. Everything is impacted, right? And that is why it is such a vulnerable period in anybody's life. And that's why we're making specific room to talk about it here. And we'll go into what helps and what are the needs, but we're right now sketching out the landscape. And so when this transformation happens, because it is a large scale transformation, and it is a natural one as well, it demands focus, it demands attention, it demands resource allocation. So your identity is again demanding to be reorganized, and not as a challenge that is imposed on you. There is a utility of it. There is a wisdom behind why that needs to happen, because you have the faculties available, but you need to develop the templates to be able to utilize them. So you have the capacity to, let's say, patience, right? But you have to build on that muscle to be able to access it on a day-to-day basis. And so you would say, I didn't think I had the patience in me to you know, um, go through this heartburn, or I didn't know that I could eat so much, or I didn't know that I could, tune out a child's tantrum. But here you are doing that, and you might hear it from people around you that, okay, you're a different person. Never thought that you would look like this, so you would be able to cope with a situation like this. But, so that is also a form of identity reorganization that's happening. So there is an evolutionary purpose behind it, not just on a social or a generational aspect, but very personal to you as well. So you get to expand and experience yourself in a very evolved way. So when that happens, of course, there's going to be a lot of different things that coexist. And that is also a very natural part of the perinatal period. So far, so good. I'm
Yeah,
hoping
it
that it
sounds
is.
like it sounds like a lot of growth, right? A lot of like there's growth happening within you, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, and that's about how you perceive it, right? And that's a challenge. We're not saying that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, look at this as a growth opportunity and not as a challenge, because it is
Mm-hmm.
both, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is also an exercise in choosing and exercising your agency to choose and develop the narrative that you want around it, right? And that's going to be functional in your life. And we're going to talk more about this. Okay, the need to re-find balance as life circumstances change is very central to us as creation, as a human creation in all aspects of our life. So that's true for our cultural, social, our psychological, our anatomical, and then even core to that, our heart, our kind of link our physical bodies to the spiritual creation that we are coming from, for the lack of a better word. And so those are also elements that are included in our fitra, and our religion also refers to that as taskiyah. So these are growth opportunities. Anything we do come across in our life, any circumstances, a growth opportunity, but this one is like a crash course in a growth opportunity,
Yeah,
right?
it seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah,
A
so it's
lot of
like
change.
absolutely. It's like it's exponential basically,
Mm-hmm.
and it is truly transformative. And
It must be, sorry, Shamil, it must be like important to be able to slow down in this process, to be able to adapt and
yeah,
adjust yourself and take it in and then
yeah,
recognize the strides.
that is true. And one of the things that we consistently refer to in our therapeutic process, and I think that's a therapeutic in general, but in psychotherapy it applies as well. When we say slow is fast, right? So we need to slow down to be able to really anchor our intention. And when we have done that, the direction is just in the right orientation. And if even if you're taking one step in the right direction, that's a certain step, and we're not taking that back again. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not two steps forward, one step back. It's slow and steady, one step in the right direction, and you've made that change. Um, and I'm not just referring to that in a metaphorical way, in a very poetic way. I mean that literally, because this is what our research now, even though we haven't done a lot of research about the perinatal period, but whatever we know, we have seen prominent structural changes that also support this narrative. So it's not just a personal one; it's actually, a scientific one as well, and which is also a way of knowing. So moving forward here, we're expanding into okay, personal meaning, personal identities shifting during this time, and there's a lot of um, neurological changes that support the access to your own personal resource and your ability to even point to reject or accept social support. I guess also tolerance level decreases for a reason, because you have to be very quick and definitive in saying yes and no, right? So oftentimes when people say, oh, a pregnant person can be so irritable and can snap, another
Mm-hmm.
way of looking at it is they know what they want, and they're not going to settle for an arbitrary promise of something that may or may not happen, you know because there is an evolutionary reason of survival, and
Mm-hmm.
then evolution, right? So when you expand in these responsibilities towards yourself and the life that you will be responsible for, in a way, um, it requires you to also reorganize time and energy, right? And again, that is supported by what is accessible to you, or what your brain is automatically allocating energy to, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's supported. The only thing is that because it's going to be a different experience than whatever you have lived so far in your life, there
Mm-hmm.
is going to be a psychological and emotional resistance towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of challenge here is to step out of your own way. you know,
Hmm.
and to work with reducing that resistance, and the rest is really happening on its own.
Mm.
And that is the wise process of that is basically what we're learning through, traditional narratives about this, scientific emerging narratives about this as well, and community narratives about this as well. So really, the focus here is there is a resistance build up because this is different, not because it is dangerous or threatening. Yeah. So, but that is the learning process of, you know, working with your resistance as opposed to fighting it, right?
Mm.
Um, yeah. So in that sense, then growth naturally unfolds into a new stage of life, and that's again successful transformation. But the narrative that has consistently helped individuals move from one to the other in any transition period, and again, we're just enhancing this and saying this is times 10 of any transition,
Right.
is forming a narrative, and that is a very crucial process, and it's a very deliberate and effort-taking process, but that's effort put in the right place. What is going to be functional for you?
Hmm. Hmm.
So while again that is true, that it is challenging, and we're not denying that, and we're not going to gaslight ourselves,
Hmm.
and say it is not challenging. It's great, right? That's not
Yeah.
what we're reinforcing, but we're saying it is also an opportunity for growth that is supported.
Right.
So your choice and your agency comes when you acknowledge the multitude, elements of reality, and then say, this one I want to build on. I choose this one to build on because it serves me better, right? It's not
Mm.
that you're denying the other. It's not that you're denying, hey, it's winter and it's like snowing outside, but you're saying, I need to really step out of the house because I've been cooped in for the last 7 days and it's not helping, right? And I
Mm.
can't. So get your winter tires in, right?
Yeah.
So get a walking buddy, or I don't know, step out for a cup of coffee instead of making it at home after 7 days. So basically, this is the same choice, but this is more impactful, and that's why it will carry a bit of more weight as well. So choosing to build on the narrative of growth as opposed to coping through this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And I like how about being very specific and like deliberate in what you're choosing to help yourself. And it's a really great when you're going through anything, just to prioritize what's most important right now is so helpful because things can get overwhelming when you've got so much on
Yeah.
your plate. Yeah, thank you so much.
And just going to add, a couple
Sure,
of
go ahead.
aspects to this before we move into the next bit is,
Yes.
you know, this idea of recognizing that the brain changes are not just happening up here, or the
Mm-hmm.
body changes are not just happening down here, and we need to take care of it. And it's an outdated idea of taking care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we step into a holistic perspective development, the more coherence we will find in our day to day life, really. And so the idea of balance is not just stabilize your nervous system. We're saying it's really an integration of self identity, balance, and or if I translate into some of the references from our faith practices as well, we're really asking for a balanced perspective that would work in all areas of life equally is balancing your nafs, that is a self, the akal, that is the intellect, the qalb, that is the heart, which is the center of perception and your transformation, the spirit, which is the ruh, and the body, which is the jism. And so that's how you really need to then, come back to yourself in a way, and stitch it back your entire life back together and see, what's the next step that you want to take. Because it is the time where, before and after, in your life. So neglecting any one aspect of existence is going to show up as hindrance in the next aspect, right?
Mm.
Um, and so, in that sense, self awareness and accountability in the form of muhasaba which is introspection and self-reflection, in where you need to provide for yourself and
Mm,
how your actions and intentions are aligned or misaligned with that. That is going to be a crucial aspect of making steady and wise choices for yourself. So the word by word narrative building of is this happening to me versus is this happening for me? It
yeah.
is an act of choosing for yourself. And it's not just going to occur for most people. But even if it does occur for you, like for example, the people around you or the messaging around you supports this, it is still going to have far more positive effect in your life if you deliberate on that practice than if it just happens on its own.
Yeah.
So that's great, that's good enough. But we're saying sit with it and make it your own, and it will exponentially improve the quality of your life. So self accountability, of course, to make future choices easier, and that creates a behavior momentum, and that's where psychology also supports this, and also fosters humility. So we understand we have a lot of resource, but we will have limitations somewhere, and that's where we understand that we have to outsource a lot of things as well. Yeah, I think I've said a lot, but
Thank you.
um,
It's been really really informative, and I think you've tied everything together really beautifully, like to be able to have like kind of like a landscape of it, and how everything interconnects. And I think it's amazing how we're created and all the aspects of us and the changes that go on that we're not even aware of or seeing. So thank you so much for bringing them to light. I think we can like right now go into some reflective questions. So we want to kind of get the audience involved here in the chat. And thank you, Samaya, for helping me out with the slides right now. It seems to have fixed things, so that's great. Let's go to the first question. So, we want you to answer the question in the chat. You can put A, B, C, or D, and there's no judgment. This is really just to kind of notice where you are right now. There's no right or wrong answers. And I want you to choose into the chat what relates to you more. So when you think about the feelings and personal changes you've experienced, which feels closest right now? A, I'm in a season of mixed feelings, grief, joy, and overwhelm at the same time. B, my personal changes still feel unclear and I'm not sure what's settling yet. C, I feel more protective and attuned, but also more sensitive and reactive. And D, I'm gradually integrating changes, even though it feels uneven. Okay, I'm seeing some A's. I got another A.
I love when Michelle says also see, because
Yeah.
yeah. And that's what we're referring to, right? We're not one dimensional, right? We're multidimensional beings. So it is going to happen all at once. And when we build that awareness, it's going to bring in so much information about us and what's around us. And so our steps towards our well-being are also, there need to be something that aligns all of those elements together, as opposed to dealing with each in isolation, because that's it's going to be more effort and less outcome.
Thank you so much. So let's go to the next question. Thank you, everybody, for adding your answers. Okay, so this next question asks us to reflect as responsibilities have expanded, how would you describe your sense of balance and energy? A, I'm still noticing where my energy is going and why it feels stretched. B, I know I need to readjust time, energy, or support, but haven't figured it out yet. C, I'm trying small changes to restore balance across daily life. And D, I'm learning to grow into the stage rather than just getting through it. What resonates with you? Okay, I have a C. Anyone else? B, D. There's another B.
I just want to add here, because we're
Yeah.
really reflecting on these, and I like how these are reflective questions. I'm referring back to, how perinatal period is non-linear. So you may find yourself going through, all these different options at different times.
Mm,
So yeah, it could happen in the first, let's say, week or trimester. and you might feel something different in a third one. So as opposed to, passing one unit and going on to the next one, I think of it as, all accessible um, experiences that you may shift based on just how your body and your mind and your experiences, and that's going to be a unique one. Yeah.
Okay, so BNC. So thank you. So the next question. When you reflect on your body, feelings, and faith, what feels most relevant? A, I notice areas that need more care or attention. B, I'm starting to see this as a process unfolding, not just happening to me, but happening for me. C, I'm practicing reflection and accountability, even without clear answers. And D, I'm learning to meet this season with humility and compassion. I like how reflective this is because, we don't always pay attention to these type of questions to ask ourselves. This is really helpful. So we've got some A's. Thank you for all your participation, your C. And I can see how all of these questions, like you said, can shift like from time to time, right? Um, okay, so we've covered this layer. So let's get into the next layer, which Reem, will you like help us step into here by like I know we talked about supports and stuff, and we've got the environment of our lives too, right? So we're looking at the outer layer of this environment with culture, capitalism, and this motherhood, this role. Um, Beyond what's happening inside and around, like with the changes that we're experiencing that we've learned about, mothers are also moving through expectations and demands from family, community, and culture. From what you see, Reem, how do these unspoken expectations on us show up in the mother's experience during this stage?
Thank you, Zaina, for the introduction, and we will be getting into that. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like Shamyle said, we ourselves, when we're entering this new phase in our lives, there's a lot of like self-discovery that's happening. But at the same time as that is happening, there is also a lot of cultural expectations that are going on, whether that is economical, even like economical pressures, societal pressures, or within our families. Motherhood is often like deeply honored and central to our identity across our cultures. And at the same time, this honor can come with a lot of unspoken expectations, whether that is to be strong, to be grateful, or to be patient. And even sometimes it calls for some self sacrifice. And
Mm,
that oftentimes leaves very little room for emotional struggle, which is like often experienced as we are experiencing things for the first time as mothers, and we're going through so many internal changes as well as environmental changes as well. And that's why it's very important to recognize the cultural, social, and economic forces shaping the perinatal experiences, and to understand as a society that emotional distress is often a natural and understandable response, not a personal failing. Because most of the times when mothers are seen like struggling or maybe finding some things challenging, our our circle might look at us as maybe we are failing as mothers or we are not doing as expected, but that's our right. We are not expected to get everything right from the get-go. It's as we are understanding our own bodies, we're also understanding this new baby that we're having to take care of and managing all the other expectations that are there. Unfortunately, in many collectivist cultures, motherhood is tied to moral worth, sacrifice is normalized, and endurance is praised. And emotional struggle is interpreted as ingratitude or even weak faith. In
mm,
this context, feeling distress as a mother can not just only feel painful, but also shameful. And what society often overlooks is that support isn't just practical, it's more of emotional as well, which is what truly is needed at those times. Being emotionally seen, heard, and understood is just as important as helping with the baby or the household chores. Yet, it is sadly frequently forgotten. Mothers need more than just helping hands. They need hearts, they need presence and validations for what they are truly feeling. And then they are faced with another layer of challenges. If you can just go to the next slide, which comes from the pressure of capitalism. In a society that values productivity and economic contribution above all else, women are often expected to still juggle those multiple roles, whether that is caring full time for their children, managing their households, contributing financially, and returning to their normal work life, or just like being a motherly figure on its own very quickly.
That's
Even
a
when
big
extended.
pile. That's a big pile on us, right? Like everything at the same time, and expectations. Mm,
Exactly, yes. And that can take a very like heavy like toll on mothers. And even when extended family is present, there's a lot of unseen mental and emotional labor that go into being a mother, whether that is planning, organizing, remembering appointments, managing their own needs as long as their baby's needs and still their household needs. There's a lot to take in and there's a lot to take care of.
mm,
And sadly, under a capitalist view, much of this work is invisible and undervalued, even
mm.
though it is essential for a society to function. The pressure to perform in both paid work and housework with minimal support adds a profound layer of stress for moms. And this work is critical, but it creates a very like a negative strain on mothers as well.
I think
And
like just to add, if I think it's like really hard, like sometimes to just look at that as well and say like, all these expectations on a and just accept and being able to accept what you're capable of doing and prioritizing that without listening to all the noise around you of these demands. Yeah, what do you feel helps with that, Reem, like to be able to ground yourself in that as well and to listen and kind of reference yourself for what is priority here for me?
exactly, which brings us to our next point where they're having what Shamyle said with all the internal changes that they're experiencing and then all those expectations that they're having to face.
Hmm.
And then they're faced with comparison and judgment. And that just adds a whole other layer of pressure on them.
Hmm.
And it can be very hard for moms to dissociate themselves from whatever they're hearing from everyone around them, especially that comparison can often comes from the closest people to you, whether that is your family, your sister, cousins, or even your in-laws. People who you would think you'd need to have for support might often be the ones that are having all of those like judgment and comparison, which adds a different layer of stress on moms. But while it is easy for mothers to internalize these comparisons, what mothers need to understand that what worked for someone else's child might not apply to you as well. Allah has created us all differently and uniquely. And even mothers who have had multiple pregnancies, they can even tell you, like, my first pregnancy was completely different than my second. So, why is it that whatever applied for other moms or other children should be applied to our own situation and our own children as well? Every child and every mother is unique, and development unfolds at its own pace, even if society often dismisses that. But it is very important to understand that not everyone's experiences will be the same, and not even a single mother who had different babies, every experience with every baby might look different. So don't be too hard on yourself. And then lastly, motherhood also comes with a psychological contradiction. Doing profoundly important work while feeling invisible and still pressured to perform. In this space, emotional distress isn't just pathology, it's a reasonable response to cultural and societal pressures. Small, everyday micro invalidations, comments that minimize feelings, pressure to bounce back quickly, reinforces this tension. And a holistic perspective reminds us that motherhood isn't just a part of is just a part of your life. It's not your life as a whole. You are
Mm.
still free to have a life apart from just being a mother and a caregiver. You still need to cater to your needs as well. I know it is very easy for us to kind of get dragged into all of these responsibilities all at once and often forgetting about what our needs are as mothers on our own. But there's only so much you can give without catering for yourself. And ultimately, what you give to yourself, you'd be able to give back. And it would be much better when you take care of yourself first, while still maintaining your children's needs. So staying connected within yourself, whether that is by praying, by maintaining social connections, seeking help when necessary. It's most people see that as like shameful to go ask for help, or maybe it could minimize like what people might think of them, but it is important to ask for help when it is needed. Setting boundaries between you, your partner, or even families with how much they are involved in your baby and how you go about things can be very important.
This sounds like
Um,
great tools, Reem. I'm just came to mind, like I'm envisioning this mom with like, because it's actually a common experience I hear, with like two kids hanging off them because they need them for everything, and it's like going to the bathroom is like, do I get the privilege of going to the bathroom alone anymore? That kind of feeling. Like how do we, what do we do to help ourselves in this situation, like to be able to have more time to keep that connection going with our own needs, you know? Um,
Definitely.
yeah.
Taking care of yourselves it doesn't need to doesn't mean you have to leave the house and do something. It's just as simple as having some downtime for you on your own, because when you're constantly working and you're constantly giving but then you're not receiving anything on your own, you will feel drained at the end of the day. You need to set apart time for, even if it's more than one child, you are expected to give them time, but it is also expected for you to give time for yourself, whether that is praying, whether that is journaling, whether that is meditating. Just having some 10 to 15 minutes can change a lot with how you're feeling. Because as you
True.
said, Dana, just going to the washroom on its own sometimes might be difficult.
Yeah.
So definitely having those like boundaries in place can be really helpful.
Yeah, I like that. I like about like you don't have to leave the house to be able to do it. So that was really helpful to bring it back down to like what's within your capacity as well.
Yeah.
Um, let's move on to our reflective questions here. So again, we're going to get you guys involved. The first question that's coming on the screen, it says, in cultures where motherhood is highly valued, what most strongly shapes a mother's inner experience after birth? Is it, what do you feel from your perspective? Is it the personal resilience and mindset, A? B, cultural expectations around strength, sacrifice, and patience? Or C, the limited understanding of the postpartum period? Put your answers in the chat.
I see a lot of C's in the chat. It is totally understandable, and that's why we are advocating more about the postpartum period and the challenges that go beyond just the internal challenges, but also all of like managing all the expectations that go into this period. There's a lot of attention on what the child might need in this period, but there also should be a focus on what the mother needs.
I missed, and I just caught that comment on my with my eye. Can you share a little bit more about that? You said like if we made room for boredom, it stabilizes a lot within our neurology on its own. That caught me because it kind of reminds me of like exercising, that time to be just with out all the movement and nothing necessarily have to be happening. Tell
Yeah.
us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so when we're talking about a lot of tools and self-care, there is a lot out there.
Mm.
There is also a tacit kind of expectation that you need to have a self-care plan. But honestly, when there is a lot that is expected of you, and you are having trouble also slowing down your own brain because it's like going at a speed that you have to catch up with it, right? Because of the structure changes and everything.
Mm.
Um, there is a term that we use in our psychotherapeutic practice where we say there are tools to upregulate and then there's tools to downregulate, right? And so both of these indicate to what kind of where do you need to put the weight in order to be in a balanced state, right? So if you find yourself in an overstimulated environment, like you were sharing, that you don't even have room to be by yourself in the washroom, um, you probably need to downregulate your system, right? And for that, if you can find space to do nothing, right? That's also a muscle that is going to stabilize a lot within your mind and body on its own. So sometimes we have to do things, sometimes we have to put those things down, right? And it's about learning that discretion and practicing that muscle of, okay, I need some time for nothing. And that's my scheduled nothing time, right?
Mm.
And so if you can, and that's easier said than done, honestly, because I mean, that's a muscle that monks practice. That's a muscle that Sufis practice. We practice, right? In our prayer. So sitting with yourself in psychology, what does that mean, really? And can you not indulge in a thought process and just be with it? Those are two different things. So yeah, if you can learn to be with boredom and be bored, that is also going to help a lot in a time where it can almost feel chaotic.
I take from that like just to slow things down as well, like just whatever that means for you, like to just not have to add to the list of something to do because it already can feel so much to add. Do you want to add something else on that?
Yeah, I would just say doing anything that you're doing for yourself, if
Mm-hmm.
it's backed with intention,
Mm,
or what your nia is about it, that impacts the output. So whatever influence you have of even like a walk, a 5-minute walk, if your intention is I need to check that off my list versus I need this to get out of one environment into another so it stabilizes me. So let nature do its job. I don't have to do anything. I just have to be here. The intention is different and its impact will be different. And that's what we know by research. It's not stories, it's what we know impacts our biology positively. So again, and that's of course a concept that our religion also teaches us that we have to ascertain why are we doing this? Why are we doing anything? Right? We have to
mm,
revisit our intention with everything. And so
mm.
yeah.
The intention is the root of everything. I like that. Thank you so much. Okay, so the next question. Many mothers receive practical help after birth, but still feel unsettled on the inside. What is often missing here? A, advice on how to cope. B, more time alone to adjust. Or C, feeling understood, supported, and truly heard. What do you guys feel? I've seen C, C, all of the above. Yeah, I agree. All of the above. Anyone else? Feeling understood, supported, and truly heard.
Those responses also reflect on what we've been like talking about, that oftentimes we need, like mothers need not just practical support, but they also need like emotional support.
Mm,
So this just adds, like, proves that for us.
I agree. It shows up. Thank you. Let's go to the last question for this. Okay, so where does pressure around doing motherhood right mostly come from? Is it A, direct criticism from others? Is that what's making you feel like you got to do it right? B, the social media and family comparisons. C, personal expectations shaped by culture and society. Which one feels like it rings the bell for you? I feel like as a mother, we are our worst critics. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Thank you for answering. So that speaks a lot, doesn't it, Reem?
It does. It is very easy to fall into like comparing yourselves to what you see other mothers doing. But then it is still very important to just remind yourself that everyone's experiences is very unique, and what applies to other moms might not necessarily apply to you, and that is nothing to do with you. It's just how we are created. We are all created differently, and we experience things just in very unique ways.
So as we move around, having a look at what happens within us and what's going on around us and our environment. I want to offer a third lens to this layer, and it's how the heart is anchored through the stage. So it's the perinatal period as part of this larger journey of life. So we're here on a journey through this life, and making it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's take a look at the heart in us. We can go to the next slide. Life, it moves in stages. And the path is like not necessarily going to be how we're going to expect it. There's going to be bumps we're going to come across. There's going to be many different things. But Allah gives us everything we need within that path, like to be able to survive it. So it's there, the tools are there. They don't always appear there. And sometimes you got to look for them and you got to reach out for them, like we talked about. And each stage along this path is, and particularly like the stage we're talking about today, it invites your heart to a new response and a new way of witnessing how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supports you in your life. So the the perinatal period is one of these stages, and it's not separate from the journey but of life, but it's woven into it. It's already this has already been written, it's already known, it's already been all measured and accounted for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's kind of very reassuring to look at it. If we look at it, life that has been planned for us and given us what we need along this path, it's like we're on this journey with our backpack, and Allah has supplied us what we need to go through it. The journey might not be easy. There's going to be many challenging moments, and there's going to be many new adventures along that journey, but we have what we need while we go through it. And this ayah in the Quran, we say in Surah Al-Fatiha, which is actually the surah of guidance. So in this ayah that we say, Allah reminds us, you alone we worship, and you alone we ask for help. So it's reminding us, Allah is telling us that we worship, we love, we rely, we trust, we turn to you, Allah. And you, Allah alone, we ask for that help, the help that we need to provide it to us on this journey through different tools and different resources and different things. And we ask Allah to provide that for us so that we can use it to help ourselves along that journey. We can go to the next slide. Not only that this ayah reminds us that Allah is taking care of us and we have Him to turn to, and that we need to turn to Him, but it tells us how we can move through these challenging stages in our life, including throughout pregnancy, birth, and the postpartum. If we're orienting our hearts towards the provider, Ar-Razak, Allah will, knowing that Allah is the one who will be providing us with what we need through whatever resources He's created within that path that's already been designed for us, it gives us a sense of security inside. It gives us a sense of balance, a sense of ease through these new steps coming. And every step of the way, we always, just like we say this dua in every part of our prayer, we continue asking Allah throughout the process, throughout this journey, no matter what we come across, even the easy parts and the tough parts, we turn back to the one who's providing for this. And the interesting thing with this ayah, as we know through the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah responds to us after we say this ayah in the prayer, and He says, "My slave will have what he has asked for." Subhanallah. So, like, not only that we're asking, we're taught from Allah what to do in these situations to ask of Allah, Allah is also telling us, I'm answering you. I'm going to answer what you're asking for. So my invitation here for this is truly come to your heart with that dua. Um, in Islam, it teaches us that Allah created us, and we talked about it before, it's come up in the conversation, that the human being is been created with the fitra, which is your native, natural disposition. And this is something like, if we can look at it as a seed in the heart that can grow. And it takes time for it to grow. It doesn't happen all at once. It needs to be fed with good things to make it grow, of true things to make it grow so that it develops and it helps us. And within the fitra, we are also looking at this capacity to respond to change. How do we know that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that, he doesn't put on us anything on this journey without what we need to be able to respond to it. So we have that capacity to respond to change. We have the ability to seek help when needed. And that's why Allah, the provider, Arazak, provides us help through different sources, through different people, through different things. But we have the ability, and we need to access and exercise that ability with asking Allah strength and guidance with to seek that help that we need when we need it. And we have the capacity to grow into these new responsibilities we have over time. It doesn't all happen at once. You're not like, like gonna kind of give birth and have your baby on you. This is my experience, and like everything you're gonna know right now, everything you're gonna feel right now, right away. No, it happens. Even love for your child doesn't necessarily happen the moment you give birth. No, it's something that's fed and that's developed and that's cultivated and grows over time. So it's really important to put this into perspective, because otherwise we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and we don't realize, and we think we're in this life doing it on our own, but we're not. We have Arazak with us. You can change the slide. Thank you. So, like I mentioned, nothing else about this stage is outside of the design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you're moving through this meaningful transition, this meaningful part of your life, that one that Allah has already written and placed and provided for within the design of your life. And it's like I said, it's really helpful to remember this. It helps settle the heart. And recognizing that the stage you're in right now, this this part of the path you're in is part of a larger journey Allah has set for you. So it's not like this is all of it. This is part of it. And this stage is not outside of how Allah has created us. It's within, and we have within what we need for the way Allah has created us and designed our lives to be able to unfold. This experience is happening for you. I love when Shema brought that up earlier. I was like, yes, it's exactly it. It's not happening to you, but it's happening for you. This experience, every moment of it, even if it's challenging, it's happening for you. It can only be good. Sometimes it's not visible in the media. I can imagine, like, when you're feeling the pressure of what you're going through, it's really not visible in the moment. But if it's happened, it's got to be happening for you to help you along your journey of growth. So when the heart recognizes it, it naturally, natively responds with a taste of trust and tawakkul, rather than resistance. This helps you, this propels you, this gives you the momentum you need to keep going on the journey. So always returning to Allah, anchoring your heart in dua, reliance, trust in Him, knowing that He has already placed within us what we need on the path ahead, is just so reassuring. That was the part I wanted to share about this. I have some questions for you guys. Or actually, one question. So we're going to go look at this last question here. And this is to help you reflect on what I just shared. Which perspective sits right in your heart right now? Which one feels right for you? Is it remembering that this stage is part of a larger journey? Is it trusting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already placed capacity for this stage within me? Is it knowing that seeking support from others is part of how Allah created us? Or is it all of the above? What sits with you? I've got an A, D, D, B, a B, B and D. I like that. B and D. Yeah, I think for me it's a D. How about you, Reem?
Definitely D.
D.
It is all of the above. But also B really resonates because we know that like God doesn't like as his creators, sorry, as his creations, we are given the strength for any challenges that he places upon us.
Mm.
So we are for sure like capable of getting through this stage with his support and leaning on him as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Shamyle, did you want to add anything here?
Yeah, inshallah. And absolutely. So I think D, but B is a hard hitting. Like it anchors. I mean, definitely even before the seminar, So
So we are going to be wrapping up quickly. And as we're wrapping up, I have just one, if you can change slides. Yeah. So we're not meant to do this alone, right? So recognizing this is a big piece. We want to discuss a little bit quickly. I'm going to give it off to Reem again to come through like what kind of supports that we can look for support during this period. What would you be recommending, Reem?
So we do, there's a lot of like faith-based counseling that even before entering the prenatal or postpartum phase, just as you are expecting, you can get in touch with a counselor and help guide you through all the phases, and even sets expectations to what you might be experiencing after birth. So that can be very helpful. There's a lot of support groups as well, support groups within the community, or just mothers in general, especially for first-time mothers. There can be a lot of good support groups that help with advice and like what stuff you need. And then also social support. So having a good circle within your community where who you can lean on for support, especially after birth. A lot of support might be needed from those around you, especially in the first like couple of weeks as well.
Thank you. Shamile, what would you add?
remember, I'm going back to what we talked about in the beginning, that it's layered, right? Our existence and everything around us.
Hmm.
So for that to respond to all of us, we need a plan that also, encompasses all of that. So a structured care plan around the circle of care model it definitely helps. And based on the conversation that we have had so far, although you can Google it and there will be a structured care plan or a circle of care diagram that you can kind of devise your own unique care plan around. But we want to offer something that is designed around the conversation we've had today of all the three elements that we've covered. And inshallah, we'll be sharing that with all the registered participants during the week.
Awesome. Thank you so much, both of you. This has been very educational. I've learned a lot here, and it's not just educational, but it's been very helpful to put things together. And I appreciate like everything you've contributed to it. A final message here is like we want to close by remembering that each mother's experience is unique, and nothing in this stage is outside of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's measure. And help seeking, it's wisdom, it's not weakness. So it's really important to reach out. And if you feel like you need some help and support for resources or anything within this time, please contact us at Sakeenah Canada. You have both our email, info@sakeenahcanada.com, and our phone number. And we'd love to hear from you. You can get in touch and work with a caseworker like me or one of my lovely colleagues. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much to everybody for being here and attending. I know we said we were going to do some Q&A. We have gone over, unfortunately, we had a little glitch at the beginning and we've gone over a little bit. I would like to ask my colleagues here, what do you guys feel like we should be doing here? Do you want to take one or two questions if there's any, or should we
Yeah.
wrap up?
Yeah, I'm happy to take a couple of questions if they're coming our way.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me check if there was any. Any questions? Please type them in below.
I would also like to thank the participants today for engaging in the chat. I think it's wonderful to use different mediums in parallel when we can, and I'm happy to have responded to some of them as well. And it was wonderful reflecting with you guys on the questions we had as well. So thank you so much for being here and participating.
Thank you. I see, Shamyle, you caught one of the answers already, question and answer in the chat. Your recommendation, the question was, it's really a struggle to pray on time with a small baby. Are we allowed to join prayers? So, Shamyle, your answer was, it's a thoughtful question. While I don't know the scholar perspective on this, because we're not here to give scholarly perspectives, that's not our role. I can say that including intentional conversations with Allah throughout the day, like dhikr, remembrance, can help sustain your connection as well. Good point. Anyone else? That's it. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I think we're going to wrap up. Thank you again to everybody, and
Thank you, everyone.
yes, you can you can catch the recording on YouTube. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.